back to the news today. This is a one-on-one. Tonight, on the eve of Holocaust Remembrance Day in Israel, we bring you a guest with a life story almost hard to believe. Yossi Beck was raised as a Christian in Holland. At the age of 18, through a series of events, he discovered his mother is Jewish and that she survived the Holocaust, hiding for 3 years in a dark basement. Yossi, thank you very much for coming to our studio and for sharing in this specific day, your story. You know, it's almost unbelievable to be raised like all your life in a certain way, and then to discover one day, not that you are maybe from a different religion, but the story that comes with it is really unique. And you discover it, and the first reaction is what?
In fact, the story is even more amazing. The story is that I, in fact, wanted to convert to Judaism. I got attracted to Judaism from the age of 14 or something. After the Six-Day War, I started learning and reading about Israel. I didn't know what Israel was. I had never heard of Israel. I didn't know what the war was about, but it was an interesting story. And from the editorials that I started reading about the Jewish state, it was established after 2,000 years, things I'd never heard of. I didn't know what Jews were. It became a hobby. And over the years, I read books about Israel and about the history of the Jews. I bought a Bible in Dutch, because my father was an atheist. We didn't have a Bible at home. So I started reading the Bible, and by reading the Bible, I mean, I didn't know to call it the Tanakh, the Jewish Bible at the time. In fact, I started believing in God for the first time, because I was raised as an atheist, in fact. And it grew.
How do you start believing in God?
I'm telling you how this came, because my hobby, I call it a hobby, it was in the beginning. It started with the state of Israel and how it was established after 2,000 years of exile. And then suddenly I read a book that was written 3,000 years ago where it describes exactly what's going to happen. It says there exactly the Jews will be expelled, there terrible things will happen to them during a long exile, and eventually they'll return to their homeland. And that's in fact what happened. I said, look, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So let alone another 3,000 years. If 3,000 years people could write so exactly what was going to happen, that can't be people, that has to be God. And that's how I started to believe, in fact, in God. I didn't know exactly about Judaism, but I started believing in the God of the Jews. And in fact, when I was 17 years old, and in Holland, got drafted at the time, the army asked me, who do you want to be, your chaplain in the army? A Catholic priest, a Protestant priest, a rabbi, a humanist. And I wrote rabbi. Because it was a hobby, I was interested, and I started believing a bit in I was believing in the Jewish God. I had a meeting with this rabbi. He didn't know what I did there, a Dutch boy, who said, okay, I started reading the Bible, I believe in the Jewish God. He says, okay, that's fine, you believe in the Jewish God. You don't have to be Jewish, you don't have to become Jewish. And I said, oh, you can become Jewish? I didn't know that. And he told me you don't have to, and I said, oh, but I want that. And then, in fact, over half a year, he started teaching me and preparing me for conversion. And
in fact,
1 month.
You don't actually need it.
Well, that's the thing. I didn't know that. I told my parents about a month before the conversion, because I didn't want this. Couldn't be a secret. I had kept it a secret until then, because my father was an atheist and I knew he wouldn't like any religion. So I sat down with my parents and I said to them, in another month I'm going to convert to Judaism. They didn't react much. It was a bit of a shock for them. Another 2 weeks went by. And about 12 days before the conversion, my mother came into my room and she says, I've got something to tell you. And then she said, you don't have to convert, because I'm Jewish, and you're Jewish because I'm Jewish. And, well, I was stunned. I couldn't believe it, for 48. It was something I thought it was strange, and I wanted to become Jewish, and suddenly tell you that's your heritage, and you're Jewish from birth.
And what do you do with that? What do you do with that when your mother comes and tell you this, and more than that, she comes and tell you that she is a Holocaust survivor,
right?
That she is part of this exile, of this coming back to the Holy Land, of coming back to the promised land for the Jewish people. What do you feel?
It took quite a long time to cope with it and to really understand it. I had quite a lot of talks with the rabbi, the army rabbi, and it took a long time to work it out, because it's almost it is unbelievable. And I didn't understand exactly how this could have happened, how I could have been drawn to Judaism without knowing this. And indeed, the story of my mother was a very hard story. She lost her entire family. Her 11 brothers and sisters, her parents, her fiancé, She was engaged to be married before the war. And even uncles and cousins. There was nobody left of in the whole world.
Why she kept it a secret?
Well, that's what happened. After she survived, after 3 years of hiding in a cellar in the home of a Christian lady who hit a few Jews, and she came out, she decided she wanted to go on with life, which was not obvious for a lot of people after the terrible things that happened. But she said, if I bring up a family and I raise children, I can think that maybe in another 10 or 20 years the same thing will happen again. Nobody thought this could ever happen, that 6 million people would get killed. Maybe another 20 years or 15 years it could happen again. So she wanted to hide. She told my father in secret, because she didn't want to know, maybe he was a Nazi in the war. She had to know who she was marrying. But for the rest, nobody knew, not his family, and of course we didn't know. And she thought she would protect us that way, in fact, from not knowing we were Jewish.
Living with this memory, of course, obviously your mother is living with this memory until now. And
she passed away a few years ago. Yeah.
You know, and you're living with the memory of your
right.
mother until now. That what I mean. But you know, how do you each and every day that comes on the Remembrance Day, on the Holocaust Day, as a Jew living right now in Israel, are you still afraid that that this sentence, that it might happen again, that I'm protecting you and I protected you because I don't want it to happen again because I'm afraid that is it something that is still running in your mind?
Well, my mother passed away in 2008, and until she died, for sure, if I wouldn't think of that, I would have been reminded of it, because it was clear that they were very, very worried about us living in the Middle East, in the troubled Middle East, with wars every now and so often, and going to the army. So I couldn't get away from that, from knowing that this is not a safe place, and that obviously what she had wanted so much for her children, in fact, we were in danger. But I was thinking more from her point of view, that for her it was very hard, in fact, that not only do we know we're Jewish and do we live a Jewish life, but that we in fact live in an area that's dangerous.
How did she see the Israeli society? Because right now the Israeli society is really so much apart. Jews are so much apart, are fighting among themselves. The Orthodox Jews, the secular Jews, the Mizrahi Jews, Western Jews, everybody's is fighting one another. If she would have seen this right now, what would she say?
I'm sure if she were aware of that, if she would have been aware of that, and she didn't go into that much, it would of course have troubled her. The thing is that for me, I am like very, let's say, social based. I'm a social worker, by the way, by profession. Like, I mean, when I wanted to become Jewish and be part of the Jewish nation, it was the Jewish nation. No Ashkenazim and no Sfaradim and no rich and poor and no left and right and no, so for me these things are irrelevant. I mean, they have been irrelevant deliberately. I don't think in terms of a Moroccan Jew or a Dutch Jew or an English Jew or whatever.
What it's become the concern of a lot of Israeli Jews here in the Israeli society. It is something unbelievable to maybe hear, and when I hear two Jewish people are calling one another fascists, because I cannot understand how a Jew can call another Jew a fascist. This is something that you can digest, that you can living your own story?
Right. Well, I put it this way. I feel compelled to try and do something about that. I mean, because of the Holocaust, I mean, the Nazis didn't care whether somebody was left or right or winged or, Sephardi or Ashkenazi. We were Jews. And I think that knowing what happened in the Holocaust, we should be united. I mean, so what it causes me, knowing the history, is that I feel compelled to try and better the society. It's one of the reasons why I became a social worker. I wanted to help out, and make the society healthier. The little thing I can do, but that is the message, in fact, that I took from it, from the Holocaust.
I wish, Yossi, that everyone would have taken the same message, and I wouldn't have to ask you these last questions. Right. Thank you very, very much for being who you are and for coming here to the studio.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. We're going out. That's it for tonight. Tomorrow we will be here at the same time, same place. From the Jaffa Port, Israel, have peace. Have a great night.